I'm Detective James, and this is the cases the news forgot.
The file wasn't hidden. That was the first mistake. It was sitting exactly where it shouldn't have been, on my desk, under my lamp, perfectly aligned with every other open case. Same beige folder, same official stamp, same weight, except for the label. Do not solve, not classified, not sealed, not even restricted. Just 3 words, written in black ink, all caps, no explanation. I stood there longer than I should have. In my line of work, you learn the difference between warnings meant to protect people and warnings meant to protect secrets. This one wasn't trying to scare me. It was daring me. The file had no return date, no originating department, no chain of custody stamp. It hadn't been logged in or out, which meant one thing. Someone wanted it found. Inside were photographs taken years apart. Same locations, same angles, different decades. A school hallway, a roadside diner, a basement room with concrete walls and no windows. In every photo, one detail was circled in red. A man standing in the background, always out of focus, always looking directly at the camera, always wearing different clothes. The attached note was short. If this case resurfaces, it means you already know too much. I checked the case number. It didn't exist. No database record, no archive reference, no digital footprint. That alone should have ended it. Cases without records don't get solved. They get buried. That's rule number 1. Rule number 2 is the one I broke. I turned the page. The witness statements didn't match the photos. Names changed. Dates shifted by days, sometimes years. Locations were misfiled under the wrong jurisdictions. It was chaos disguised as paperwork. Sloppy enough to look accidental. Too sloppy. One statement stopped me cold. I don't remember calling the police. I don't remember giving a statement. I only remember being told not to talk about him again. No signature. Just the initials. I checked the timestamp. The statement had been added after the case was officially sealed. That's when my phone vibrated. No number, no caller ID. I didn't answer. The voicemail came anyway, a distorted voice. Calm, familiar in the wrong way. You were told not to solve it. The line went dead. I didn't move for a full minute. When you investigate long enough, you learn that fear isn't loud. It's quiet. It's the moment your instincts stop arguing and start agreeing. I looked back at the folder. The red circles in the photos weren't identical. They were tracking movement. The man wasn't just present. He was getting closer. The last photo showed him standing directly behind the camera. Behind me. I closed the file. That should have been the end. Instead, I did the one thing every warning tells you not to do. I opened a fresh notebook and wrote one sentence at the top of the page. Why does this case not want to be solved? Because whatever doesn't want to be understood usually has the most to hide. And once you ask the question, it starts watching how you look for the answer. I didn't take the file home. That was another rule I didn't know I was supposed to follow until I broke it later. Instead, I did what every investigator does when something feels wrong. I looked for patterns that shouldn't exist. I started with the photographs, scanned them, enhanced them, adjusted contrast, light balance, edge definition. Nothing dramatic appeared, no hidden symbols, no reflections, just that same man, always blurred, always watching. But when I layered the images over one another, something changed. The backgrounds lined up. Different cities, different years, same geometry, Same angles between doors, windows, and corners. It was like the places were copies of something else. Not replicas, iterations, as if the locations were being reused. That's when I noticed the dates. Every photo was taken on a day when another case was officially closed. A missing person declared dead, a disappearance ruled accidental, a file marked resolved. This wasn't one investigation. It was the shadow of many. I pulled older sealed cases from the archive, ones no one talked about anymore, cold enough that even the dust had given up on them. I didn't know what I was looking for until I saw it. The same phrase appeared again and again, buried in final reports. No further action required. Different handwriting, different departments, same sentence. I cross-referenced the names of the officers who signed those reports. 3 of them were deceased. 2 had retired early. 1 had vanished completely. No obituary, no pension record, no explanation. The system had erased him clean. I went back to the file. Tucked inside the back pocket was something I hadn't noticed before. A folded sheet, creased until the paper was almost transparent. It wasn't an official document. No letterhead, no seal, just handwriting. Every time someone gets too close, the rules change. Below it was a list. No recording devices, no witnesses, no copies. Do not say his name. Do not describe his face. Do not finish the investigation. That last one was underlined so hard the pen had torn through the page. I felt it then, that subtle pressure behind the eyes. The sense that the room had grown quieter than it should have been. Not silent, just attentive. I checked the hallway outside my office, empty, lights buzzing softly. Normal, too normal. I turned back to my desk and found something new, sitting on top of the folder. A sticky note. Yellow. Fresh. The glue still strong, written in the same black ink. You've already started. I didn't hear anyone enter. Didn't hear footsteps. Didn't hear the door open or close. Security cameras later showed nothing. No motion, no interruption. The note had simply arrived. I did what the rules explicitly told me not to do. I made a copy. The machine jammed halfway through. Paper crumpled. Lights flickered. When it restarted, the copied page was blank. Not faded, not smudged. Blank like it had never held ink. That's when my phone rang again. This time it showed my own number. I answered. Silence at first, then breathing, slow, controlled, like someone trying not to rush. You don't understand what solve means, the voice said. I asked who this was. You already know, it replied. You just aren't allowed to say it yet. I demanded to know why the case was sealed. There was a pause. Then the voice said something that still doesn't sit right in my head. Because solving it doesn't stop him. The call ended. Outside my office window, the city lights flickered once, just once, and for a split second, every reflection in the glass showed someone standing behind me. Not clearly, not fully formed, just enough to know I wasn't alone in the investigation anymore. I closed the blinds, and that's when I realized the final rule wasn't there to protect the public. It was there to protect the people who try to understand what happens when a mystery doesn't want an ending. By the third night, the case wasn't waiting on my desk anymore. It was waiting for me. I arrived at my office just after midnight. Same building, same security badge, same routine I'd followed for years. But the lights were already on inside my room, casting a low amber glow across the hallway. I knew for a fact I'd turned them off when I left. The file sat open, not where I'd left it. The pages were rearranged, not randomly, intentionally. Photographs now sat beside witness statements they hadn't originally belonged to. Dates had shifted again. Some pushed forward, others pulled backward. The timeline was collapsing in on itself. I checked my notebook. The sentence I'd written was still there, but something had been added beneath it in handwriting that wasn't mine. You're asking the wrong question. I didn't touch the pen. I didn't need to, because the file had already decided what I needed to know next. A new document sat clipped inside the folder. Fresh paper, crisp edges, no aging, no official markings. The top line read, "Unfinished investigations, behavioral effects." It wasn't a report. It was an observation log. Each entry described the same pattern. Different investigators, different decades, same outcome: loss of sleep, distorted memory, increased fixation on minor details, recurring dreams involving rooms with no exits, anxiety when attempting to stop. The last line appeared in every entry. Subject refuses to abandon the case despite warnings. I flipped the page. The next section was titled Resolution Attempts. There were none, just a note written smaller than the rest. Completion is not possible, only interruption. That's when I understood something that hit harder than fear. This case had never been meant to be solved. It had been meant to be passed on. I searched the names of the previous investigators again, this time looking for something I'd missed. Family records, property ownership, rental agreements, anything that suggested continuity. 3 of them had lived in the same building at different times, different cities, same floor plan. The rooms were identical, not similar, identical. I pulled up the building schematics. The structure had been demolished years ago, rebuilt, renamed, repurposed, but the layout never changed. One hallway, one room at the end, no windows. My phone vibrated. No call, no message, just a notification from an app I didn't remember installing. Case status, active. I tried to uninstall it. It didn't appear in my settings, didn't exist anywhere except on my screen. When I locked the phone, the notification remained, glowing faintly beneath the glass. I went back to the photographs. This time I noticed something new. In the earliest image, the man in the background was barely visible, a blur near the edge of the frame, easy to miss. In later photos, he stood closer, clearer, sharper. In the most recent one, his face was still obscured, but his posture was unmistakable. He wasn't watching the scene. He was waiting. I checked the timestamp on that photo again. It wasn't taken years ago. It was taken 6 hours earlier. In my office, I stepped back. My chair creaked behind me. I hadn't moved it. The air felt heavier, like the room had sealed itself. No drafts, no distant noise from outside. Even the hum of the lights had softened, like someone had turned the world's volume down. That's when I heard it. Paper shifting, slowly, behind me. I didn't turn around. Every instinct screamed that acknowledgement mattered, that seeing him, or whatever this was, would count as progress. And progress, according to the rules, was dangerous. Instead, I spoke. I won't finish it. The sound stopped. I waited. Seconds passed, maybe minutes. Then a voice spoke from somewhere too close to identify. That's what they all say, it replied, right before they understand. I felt something slide across the desk. Not shoved, not dropped, placed. When the pressure in the room lifted, I looked down. A final page had been added to the file. Blank, except for one line typed neatly at the top. Final step. Choose what remains unfinished. I realized then that the case wasn't about him. It was about us. About the need to close loops, to resolve stories, to demand answers. This file punished that instinct. And the more you tried to finish it, the more it rewrote you into its place. I thought walking away would be enough. That was my final mistake. The first sign wasn't fear. It was familiarity. Places I'd never been before felt remembered. Hallways seemed to know how I moved through them. Doors opened before I reached for the handle, like the decision had already been made somewhere else. The case hadn't followed me. It had settled into me. I stopped checking mirrors, not because I saw something, but because sometimes I didn't. Reflections lagged, expressions formed a fraction of a second late. Once, in an elevator, I watched my own reflection continue staring forward after I turned my head. I didn't turn back. At night, I dreamed of paperwork, endless forms, redacted names, case numbers that dissolved when I tried to read them. Always the same ending. Me standing in a room with no windows, holding a file I didn't remember picking up. When I woke, my hands hurt, like I'd been gripping something too tightly. I tried to distance myself, took time off, left the city, no badge, no routine, no investigations. I told myself distance would weaken whatever connection had formed. Instead, the case adapted. I started noticing sealed envelopes in places they didn't belong. Hotel nightstands, rental cars, even once, tucked into a grocery bag beneath the receipt. Always blank, always empty, except for the feeling that if I opened the wrong one, something would finish itself. I understood then why the final rule existed. Do not finish the investigation. Because finishing didn't mean solving, it meant replacing. I went back to the office weeks later, not because I wanted to, but because I needed to confirm something. The building felt smaller, compressed, like it had folded inward while I was gone. My desk was clean, no file, no envelope, no warning, just a single document already logged into the system. Case status: transferred, no recipient listed. That's when it hit me. The case didn't disappear when someone stopped pursuing it. It waited, it moved, it found someone who didn't yet know the rules, someone curious, careful, capable, someone who would think they were in control. I realized then that my role hadn't been to solve anything. It had been to teach the case how I think, to refine it, to make it smarter, safer, harder to detect. The rules weren't written to protect investigators from the case. They were written to protect the world from what happens when the case completes itself. I left the building without looking back. I don't keep records anymore. I don't document patterns. I don't finish conclusions. Some nights, I feel the pull, the need to understand just one more detail, to connect the last thread, to give the story an ending. That's when I stop, because somewhere, right now, a file exists with your curiosity written into it. And if this story feels unfinished, that means it's working. The case marked "Do Not Solve" isn't gone. It's simply waiting for the next person who believes they can handle the truth. And if you ever come across it, on a desk, in an archive, or where it shouldn't be, remember this: not every mystery wants an answer. Some of them just want a successor.